All right, we are doing our first ever podcast together. We are going to talk a lot about our season so far this year, and I think we both have enough stories for our season this year to probably last us about 3 hours. But we're going to try to cut it down to 45 minutes to an hour, I suppose, or whatever it takes. But I have my co-host with me here, Luke Flink, aka
How's it going?
Baby Shoes,
That's right. HC Johnson.
H.C. Johnson. I am Zane Seeley, and this is, we haven't even named it, but this is our podcast.
Yeah.
So, what started off, Luke? How's your season been so far?
Well, it was originally looking to be pretty good. I didn't get I didn't get in on any of the bow hunting or nothing. But it was shaping up to be a pretty beautiful rifle season. Um, I I don't own a ton of land. I own 12 acres, but it is in the most perfect funnel spot you could imagine. And my wife shot a nice 170 whitetail out of there last year, and
Is that what that one's
I
for?
knew thereabouts, yeah.
Thereabouts.
It's
Okay.
it's still at the taxidermist, so I haven't gotten official, but it's right around there. Yep.
Yeah, I
So
know it's a good one.
yeah, so I knew I didn't have anything of that caliber around this year, but in the last month I had I believe I tallied 14 different pretty decent bucks on camera um, throughout the last month, and I had a couple of the bigger donks that were hanging around and some dink bucks and stuff. But the night before rifle opener, someone ran a bloodhound through my place, and I saw the pictures before I went to bed, or one of them rather, and I thought, well, so one of the neighbors' dog is out and about. I just kind of like, well, damn it anyway, and I went to bed just kind of like, what do you do? And I woke up the next morning and it had like 300 pictures from my four cameras. And I was like, oh, we got some deers, boys.
Right.
Well, I started looking at the pictures and my blood boiled. This dog was in my place for over an hour, and I had pictures of him chasing and whatnot. And so I went around to all the neighbors. None of them recognized this dog. Uh, so I went and pulled the SD cards, and there's videos of this damn dog, and you can actually hear someone yelling commands at him. So the night before rifle opener, uh, someone went through and flushed my woods out. And
Oh, shit.
yeah,
But
I
yelling commands to him. Apparently, he doesn't listen very well either.
well, no, he was telling him where to go, not to
Oh,
come back, kind of thing. So it was very much on purpose. It's a small town. I think people kind of got wind of what came out of there last year, and
jealousy.
yeah, more or less, I think, I didn't really talk to anybody around that town, but obviously the rack from last year is at the taxidermist in town there. So I'd imagine word gets around, right? So
Right.
just soured, and uh I didn't necessarily let that keep my hopes down, I guess. We went and did a lot of sits and put a lot of hours in sand and I had the opportunity to shoot uh, 2.5-year-old 5x5 multiple times, but that's not my style. I'm not one of those brown is down people.
Right. Right.
You only get big bucks if you let them get big, and
Right. And you only shoot
um,
bucks. You can't shoot big bucks if you shoot small ones.
right. And that being said, as well, I mean, I haven't shot a doe out of that place in probably 10 years, just because I haven't had to. There's one really old gal walking around there, and she just hasn't crossed in front of me. If she had, I probably would have taken her out of there just uh just to do the right thing, kind of thing, and maintain the herd. But uh and it sounds stupid saying herd on 12 acres, but it's surrounded by hundreds of acres of farmland, and it's just in a great spot. So,
Well, all you need during the rut is to have does on that 13 acres, and
and
you're
that's
gonna
kind
have
of
the
always
boys
been,
coming through.
yep, that's been the train of thought. keep the girls around and the boys will come to call. And
Yep, yep, exactly. That's been my philosophy since I was a kid because it's worked for me too. So,
yeah, and we'll pop one once in a while, if we need meat for the freezer or something. But out of that place in particular, it's been 10 years since I shot a doe out of there. So
mm,
I've had I've had great luck. And long before I even bought the place, it was the family farm. My family's owned it since 1883, and
right.
I brought you out there about what 15 years ago,
Oh God, it's
maybe even
probably
better.
longer than that
Yeah,
almost, I
yeah.
bet.
I don't even want to know.
Well, how
But
old was Coy? Coy
eight,
had to be what, eight,
yeah.
7 or 8? Yeah, he's 24 now. So
Oof, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So it's been a minute, but
yeah, we're
even
older than what we think we are.
right, yeah. Doesn't seem like it, but even back then, though, I don't know if you remember, I always told you, man, I know there's big deer in here. I've seen some monstrous tracks. This is kind of before game cams were a big thing, and stuff like that. But you saw some huge sign in this place, and you knew there was stuff around. I just never had much of an opportunity to hunt it. And and so here, however many years later, I had the opportunity to buy it in the last couple of years, and I snatched it right up because along with the problems that are there, i.e. Giant piles of junk and stuff around it. I knew there was a great opportunity for some pretty good hunting. So,
Right,
um,
right. Well, it's paid off so far. Look at Jamie's buck from
yeah,
last year.
well, and I still we have a really long muzzleloader season here in Minnesota, and they're still moving around pretty well. And the does have started getting more comfortable coming back in there again and stuff. And I haven't seen much buck action uh, lately, but they're kind of in their little cool down period in between, I think, right now. And if you figure out on a 28-day scale, that you put us right smack dab in the middle of muzzleloader season when things kind of heat up again, I think. So,
Well,
uh,
it's you live in Minnesota and I live in North Dakota, and we hunt. I was sending you pictures when I was in the blind the other day of how I hunt compared to how you hunt, and man,
yeah,
I it's night and day difference. And
yeah,
our cycle is we're still on track yet.
yep,
Sunday morning, I seen a buck chasing a doe. We should this weekend we should start seeing those bucks cruising to try to find the leftover does,
yep,
and then week after that, 5 days, whatever it's going to be, we'll start seeing the cool down period. But then they'll start getting kind of back to their, they have to eat. I mean, they ran themselves down ragged from chasing the ladies around,
yeah,
so they'll be out. The guys still going to see deer. It's just well, my season hasn't been any better than yours. So, well, my last two seasons haven't been any better than what yours is going now. That's with bow and
yep.
rifle. So it's been well, I tell you what, it could be real pussy outside and I get hit in the head with a dick. That's how bad my seasons have gone. But my daughter got hers, I think Sunday of opener, so that was her first buck, so that was neater than hell.
Yeah, that was a
And
great
then
picture.
boy got his biggest one to date. So somehow my kids get all the luck and I get handed shit. So
Well, I tell you what, even this big hog my wife shot out of there last year. I you know me, I've never shot a big bull hanger buck. I've hunted for years. It's just I'm not somebody that's gonna lie and tell you I have. I haven't. And
right.
I knew I had this guy, and I did a morning hunt, and I knew where he was. And this will tell you how much I love my wife. I ran home and got her at noon. She was getting off, and I rushed her back to the place and said, "Make this the quietest trip you ever made to the stand, and better damn well pay attention." And told her if she saw a doe to pay attention. And sure as hell, a couple hours later, I hit the grunt tube and just kind of left it alone. And this thing come out of this slough and uh, trailed the doe across the field, went right in front of the wife, and uh, so she even got two shots. She missed the first time, and the thing stood there staring at her, and it was a whole story. But
What would
uh,
it give me?
yeah,
But
what's that?
go ahead and tell the whole story. Tell the whole
So
story. if you're okay with it, I'll post a picture on here of it so everybody can
Yeah,
see it.
absolutely. So I I bought this farmstead. Finally had the opportunity. An uncle passed away, and thankfully I was offered to buy the place. So I bought it and put some cameras up and just see what was around there, see what I kind of stepped into. I knew there was big deer around there, but I never had the opportunity to put cameras out or anything. And I've always known for years there was big deer around there. I just didn't know what. And so uh, I woke up one morning, looked at my phone, and about had a damn heart attack. It was the one of the biggest deer I've ever seen around there. It was huge, and I can send you pictures of that. We can include them as well. And so I he came in off and on, and then he disappeared. And I was like, well, at least it was cool to see him.
He's
And
he's
then
around somewhere. Yeah. Yeah.
yep. And then a couple of days before season, he popped back up on camera 2 days in a row, and I was like, he's there, he's in, he's locked up, he's there. So um, I was
Yeah. He,
real,
he came in earlier to check to see if there's any does that were close, and then he left, and then he
yep,
came he
and
came back to check again.
yep, and that granny doe I was just talking about that she's getting pretty old. That was the one he took up with. She must have had the strongest estrus, and so I was really selective about how I did it too. I didn't hunt every single day. I didn't. I hunted the wind. Everything I did just as cautiously as humanly possible, like any of us would if we knew we were on a big buck somewhere. And so I hunted, I think that Saturday, left it alone, went back out Tuesday, and I heard some grunts and some commotion in the woods. And anytime you hear big sticks snapping and a bunch of huffing, you know you're into something. And so I didn't see him. Um, that little boy inside of you that wants to pop out of stand and run through the woods like Rambo.
Right. Yeah.
But you learn better over the years. So snuck out of there and I left it alone for a couple of days. As much as I wanted to be right back out there the next morning, I left it alone for a couple of days. And so we went back out Friday, I think it was, if memory serves me correctly. And I went back out solo and I went and sat in my bow stand out on the northern side of the property. And uh, when I walked in, I could see him across this field from probably 400 yards away, bedded down next to this doe in the slough. Like you could just you knew he was there. All you saw was he turned his head. You could see, and
Right.
I didn't
Yeah.
have. I had a Henry 30-30 with me because that's really all I need in them woods, and I didn't have any optics with me, so I couldn't get even closer look. And you know how when you're hunting, your eyes can play tricks on you and stuff, and
Your eyes start
so
seeing what you want them to see.
yeah, exactly. Every clump of grass that hangs up looks like a whitetail rack, and so I went in and did a sit for a couple hours, and I just got to thinking, like, man, I don't want to screw this up. I'd really like to do this for my wife. So I snuck out of there as ninja sneaky as I could be, and I've over the years I've gotten really good at sneaking through the woods, and I snuck out of there, and on my way back out, I kind of peeked up over just to make sure, and he was still in the same spot. So, and mind you, I live 40 minutes away, so I hauled ass home. I knew my wife was getting off at noon, and I texted her already, like, you better be ready. You know, we got to go. And she was kind of, she's kind of getting frustrated with me because I was rushing her and pushing her, and she's like, it's plenty of daylight out. It's only noon, dude. And she didn't understand what was going on, and she was almost kind of mad at me on the way on the way there because I rushed her out of the house so fast, and I preached at her half the way there, like, okay, I'm putting you in the stand for a reason. You need to damn well pay attention. Don't be on your phone messing around. Just trust me. If you never trust me with anything else, trust me. Just pay attention. Be quiet and pay attention. We got there, and I said, now listen, make this the quietest trip to the stand you could possibly imagine. Tiptoe, crawl. I don't care what you have to do. Just be quiet. And she's like, yeah, okay, I get it, and I'm like, all right, just trust me, and it's one of those times in your life where something actually worked out like it was supposed to.
Right, right.
And so I walked up the road and crawled through this gate and got back into my stand, and when I got out there, I could see across the field he was still there, and I was like, it's on. Because when that sun goes down, they go from that bedding spot in the middle of that field and they travel this fence line and come into my woods. It's just back to nature. That's the spot. So um, we're sitting there and we were there for a couple hours, and I hit the grunt tube one time and I just left it alone. I wasn't gonna overdo it and ruin it. I hit the grunt tube one single time, and about 15 minutes later, I heard some commotion, kind of as I was sitting in the stand. It would have been kind of over my left shoulder, and that's where they come in at. And I was just kind of grinning to myself, and I didn't know if it was just the doe or if the buck followed. And I'm sitting there listening, watching in case, by some miracle they would have came by me. But then I heard the shot, and you instantly like, and then I waited a couple seconds, and then you heard someone donking a gun around inside of the stand. And I was, what in the hell? And then I heard another shot followed by a "Brrr." And I was like, oh, oh, you knew it, and uh, so I got out of the stand and I ran 250, 300 yards through a bunch of buckthorn get to her. And it was like it wasn't even there. I ran right through the shit. And I got there and the wife had the old, yeah. I walked up to it and sure as hell it was the big boy I had on camera. And mind you, this is the second deer my wife ever shot, the first buck she's ever shot. She'd never shot a gun in her life before she met me. Past few years, I got her into it. Turns out she loves it as much as I do, so it's been great.
Yeah.
There's some of those situations where you sometimes have to remember your wife doesn't have quite as much experience as you do at this point, or me at this point.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and it requires me to put myself in check and keep my patience a little more often. Um, and just that feeling I got seeing my wife that had I don't even think my wife was that happy on her wedding day. I mean,
Well,
she,
it, it I've been with my wife for 23 years, and for
yeah,
the first 19, she never came with hunting once.
yeah,
I told her, I said, hey, let start hunting, come with. And she goes, no, that's the boys' time. I said, no, it's not the boys' time. It's just we all get to, it is what it is.
yep,
Well, I talked her into coming with me sitting bow hunting one night, and I knew she was hooked instantly because we were
yeah,
sitting in a cornfield. It was a standing cornfield, and I had a fence line through the middle of it, in about a 20-yard gap before the next cornfield. And those bucks would cruise that fence line up and down. Well, we were sitting there, and pretty soon I heard deer behind us.
yeah.
And I slowly turned my head, and they were like 3 to 4 rows behind us coming through. And I kind of peeked over at her. I mean, her little legs were doing this. And then pretty soon the smile, I mean, just the blank stare of the holy shit. And once they left, I looked at her and I said, how do you like that? You know?
Right,
And
right,
she goes, yeah, we're gonna go buy me a bow. So she started
yep,
out bow hunting. Well, I got her
yep,
on $8 that first year. Just one of those years where everything we did turned out right, but
yep,
she shot at one and she
yep,
missed. But she the following year she got her deer tag, her rifle tag. And North Dakota, of course, season starts at noon on Friday. we sat in a spot bow hunting in the morning just to kind of
Yep.
observe to see what happens. Well, we seen a group of 8 or 9 muleys come through. And I'm like, okay, that's on the family farm. So I'm like, I know where they're going, you know. So I
Yep.
watched them and yep, they went right where I thought. So we went back and at 11:45, we were back there looking at our watch, going, okay, as soon as it's noon, we're gonna start up there. And it's just a creek bottom that came to a little slough with a few trees. That's all it was. And I snuck up there and I poked my head over top, and there they all were. And I said, okay. And that year we had buck tags and doe tags because I had extra doe tags. So we got extra doe tags too. And I'll never forget it. I was trying to film and she was asking me which one. And, there's no need in hurrying or rushing because they weren't moving. But
Yep.
I was just trying to make sure she understood what I was saying. So I was looking through the binoculars and I pull up the camera. Then she'd ask a question. I put the camera down, look through the binoculars. And I'm like, yep, he's the one. And I took my binoculars down like this, went to grab my camera, and boom, and it scared the hell out of me. And he just went flat down. So 10 minutes into her very first season, she's got a deer down. She got her first buck
Yep.
down.
Yep.
Now, what was funny is a fawn ran out, circled around, and came back down and came back in those trees where that buck was laying there kicking. And I looked at the wife. Of course, I'm excited. I'm happy. She jacks another round in. She goes, "You want me to shoot that one too?" I said, "Holy shit!" I said, "No." I said, "It's a fawn." She says, "For nobody's ever hunted, all of a sudden now she's a stone cold killer."
Right.
But and then years after that, it's been tough. We
Yep.
struggle to get deer in the ground now, and
Yep.
I don't know what it is. And of course, in the following year when we went antelope hunting and stuff, and she got her antelope the second weekend. Well, she thought that was too long, and I said,
Yep.
you got lucky. I mean, you had
Right.
your bow season. You got you were in bow range in 9 bucks. You got your first buck with a rifle within 10 minutes. You've been
Yep.
spoiled,
Yep.
and then it's just been a struggle ever since. And
So like with us, I had all those great buck pictures in the month before season, and then that whole spiel happened or whatever. But I think she went in there thinking this is something that happens like every time. And even after she shot that big one, I told her like, listen, I don't think you understand yet what you got here, but just know people hunt their whole lives and they don't shoot
yeah,
something. And
they don't see nothing like that,
right, and we
or
were
much less have an opportunity at one.
exactly, and we were midway through the season this year, not seeing much. And middle of the day, she looks at me and she whispers, I'm starting to realize exactly how lucky I was last year. I was like, what do you mean? She said, I know what you mean that those don't come around every day. I understand. It's not like they're just running in front of you. I get it. And I was like, yep. I said
Now,
last year seemed pretty. I said last year seemed pretty easy, didn't it?
now, do you still love it as much as you did last year?
Right, right. So uh, when she did shoot that big one, um, she shot it at 60 yards and missed. I'm sure just out of pure adrenaline. And it ran kind of to the right of the box stand I had her in, and she couldn't see it anymore. So she steps out onto this hay wagon I got the stand on, and it's standing 20 yards in the woods, 30 yards in the woods, staring at her. Well, she didn't have a gun in her hands. So that donking around that I heard was her rifle, i.e. my rifle, going trying to get out of the door of the stand.
Like you should have knocked the scope off or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, even that close, I don't know that it would have mattered. But um, you know, the fact that even after she donked the gun around and that whole 9 yards, the thing just stood there staring at her. And she said she even took another second to look at it and then like, okay, and boom. It's almost like the buck was like, yep, here I am. And I joked with her later. It was probably because she was wearing pink. He was probably like, "What the fuck is that?"
Well, Andy, you can't shoot for piss.
Oh, she wearing pink.
You weren't pink.
We're good, boys.
Well, I
But
suppose the doe didn't. If the doe stayed there, I suppose he didn't move at all. Then.
well, he didn't exactly know where she went because when she shot, the doe came cruising past her right by the stand and took off. So he was over to her right, and he was more or less assessing like, all right, where'd she go? Where'd she go? And that's probably a saving grace in the whole deal was he didn't know where that doe went, or he would have been on her like white
She
on
she
rice.
got she got that was a gift. That was here.
Yeah, yeah,
That it
yeah,
doesn't get any. You don't
yeah.
get chances like that with jerk bucks.
No, that was a woman to woman deal there, I think.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great. That's a hell of a way to get them hooked. That's for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And he had been, and that was the 10th last year. So he had been a busy, busy boy. That is the muskiest, wettest, nastiest deer I have ever handled. He was waist down, solid, dripping musk and stink. He was,
Yeah,
he was, he was stroking. And that being said, I kept track of it. And so last year it was the 8th through the 11th were the most active days. And this year rifle season was a week later. And it kicked off just after. So my most active days on camera this year were the 7th through the 10th. Um, those 3 days, day and night, I was getting pictures. I mean, my phone was constantly dinging and getting bucks in daytime, and it was happening. By the time season started, they were already kind of locked in a little bit, I think, and a lot of the a lot of the chasing was kind of it was there, but it wasn't to the same extent.
right.
So,
Now, what is weird out here is we had every buck we've seen has been by itself.
yep,
Now, finally on Sunday we've seen some chasing. Saturday we've seen another whitetail buck with a doe.
yep,
The weekend before we had mule deer activity,
yep,
and that's usually the
yeah,
whitetail first and the muley rate like 5 days after.
yep.
And this year it's just been flip flopped.
So what I would suggest to you is mark it on a calendar. So it's something you can look back at, even if you put it in your phone. What the
You know,
days were
two
that you
2 years ago we didn't have any activity. We had
yeah,
one day where we seen bucks with does. Otherwise, it was just spikes and basket racks with does. We seen
yep,
zero activity.
yep,
Now, every day that we were hunting was 40, 50 mile an hour winds.
yep,
And then the one nice day we had, we seen the activity.
yep, yep,
So, I mean, it was there. Obviously, it was there because does got bred. But
right,
it,
right.
a lot of guys won't pay attention to, like you said, the dates or what's exactly going on. And if you can kind of watch that and the weather and everything else, you should be able to tell damn near within the day of when it's going to kick off.
Yeah. So my train of thought with that was uh, figure out, and I work with a creamery division for our co-op. Part of that is under me as part of my job, and I was talking to a guy that breeds heifers, and breeds cows, and he was telling me kind of how a cow's gestation period works and how they know exactly when the cow's going to come into heat. They literally have it down to a science, dairy farmers, and it just got me thinking like deer have to be damn near the same thing, right? And I mean, there's a few factors that change things a little bit once in a while, but for the most part, if you figure out a gestation period and when fawns drop, it'll be right on spot with the days you saw the most activity for the most part. And it seems to ring true in from what I've been able to observe, I guess. So I for us, like I say, it's always kind of around that 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th of November. And for some dumb reason, I don't know why Minnesota does it, but they move their it must be just how the calendar works or whatnot, but they'll move rifle opener around a little bit like that, 1 week forward or backwards or stuff like that. And I never paid any attention to it when I was younger, and it makes sense why some years you were a busy man. There was a lot of deer around, and then the other years there was just I never paid attention to like, oh, it's a week later. Everybody has in their minds that deer are rutting. When opener hits, they think deer are rutting, and that's not always necessarily the case. That's just a lot of that is people can't get past their excitement and realize like they're kind of into some mild post rut stuff already. Like it's not always what everybody thinks. And don't get me wrong, there's some massive, massive whitetails that were shot this year. Absolutely massive. Some of the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life anywhere were shot around here this year. Um, but they were shot solo. They weren't even necessarily chasing.
Right.
So, um,
Well, that's the thing is, during the rut doesn't necessarily mean that's when you're going to shoot big deer. That's
yeah,
just when you're going to see the most.
right.
That's when
And even
that's
then, it depends on the phase of the rut, even. You know?
right.
Um,
Like North Dakota,
so,
ours is always the first full week, the first Friday of a full week in November is when
yep,
ours starts. And
yep,
typically it's always the second weekend of rifle season, so which would be, right there towards that 13th to 17th range, roughly, of
yep,
when ours kind of kicks off. Because ours seems to kick off a little bit later than yours. It seems
yep,
like by a couple days.
yep. And I think maybe that has something to do with elevation. I think is part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
watched a guy, he owns a deer farm. And a matter of fact, I might have told you this story or texted to the other day that he claims he keeps track of when all his does comes into estrus. And he said it is to the day every single year. And he goes, it does not matter if it's 10 degrees outside or if it's 80. It's to
yep.
the day.
I'll eat my hat. So that was the other part of what got me looking into this when we talked about that the other day. So after you texted me that, I read some articles, and that was the other part of what kind of made it ring true to me, I guess. Um, but quality, what is the name of them? There's a pretty big ass Holstein breeder around here. Like guy goes around and manually breeds Holsteins, and he kind of rang true with the same thing. Is with dairy cows is that it's like a clock. You could
Yeah.
damn near tie your watch by it, and it makes sense, you know. Um,
Whether that's true with quote unquote wild deer, I don't know. I have no clue. And I
yeah,
suppose the reason, if the weather's nice outside, they're going to do it. They're going to chase and breed at night rather than during the day when it's hot. But
yeah.
it's always the other one took here. Hopefully the other one took. It was converting, so hopefully went to a file and we got the other one. But anyway, we're back. A little technical difficulties because I'm a moron.
So
But
just
anyway,
wanted to recover really quick here. So uh, you're absolutely right. The conversation we had when I was in the stand the other day when I was texting you, that is absolutely what got me thinking about this. So what I did was I went through all of my pictures and kind of tracked when they were active during the day, and that rang really, really true. And it it was exact same days within a day of last year and this year as well. And I read some articles after we talked to just out of curiosity, and I think it's very right. I I don't think it's a flawed theory at all. So um, I do think you get these guys talking about a trickle rut, and I think some of that is maybe based on what they can see. Um, deer get pressure on them, you're not going to see them. You know? um, I don't know what your take is on that, but
it what gets me is when people say, "Well, they're not rutting. We haven't even seen any deer." Well, how the hell do you know if they're rutting? It's just like somebody saying, "Well, we went fishing today in the lake with no fish and we didn't catch any. They're not biting."
Yeah,
What the hell are you talking about? How would you know?
exactly.
That's just it. I couple guys I know, a couple relatives, wow, they ain't rutting. I should have even seen deer. Well, the hell do you know?
Well,
If
and
you're
what
not
I base
physically
it on,
watching them, knowing what they're doing, you
exactly.
know, and just because you see a buck with some does, yeah, he's waiting for him to come in. So we're
Round to go up.
close.
Yep.
We're
Yep.
close.
And I talked to you
And
that
it
day when I was sitting up on a hill watching, from half a mile away at the back of my woods. Um, and you could tell it was getting close, but I can only pick it by in my personal opinion of it is, uh, where you see these bigger bucks day and night, doesn't matter when, and they are on and nose down. They're everywhere, all over the place. You can just tell. I mean, people go by how big their necks are. I mean, that doesn't necessarily always ring true either because I had some really nice bucks this year that they were around those I know were in season and they weren't necessarily all that swollen. So I mean that's a portion of it, but it's not always it. So
right. Well,
um,
I with Zoe's buck, that was the coolest, probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
mhm,
We were watching. There's a draw that runs east and west, and there's a big hill, and then that hill goes kind of straight down on the other side, and there's a bunch of brush and whatever else. And on the bottom side of that, there's a creek. Well, there was a buck that was with one particular doe, and it had a group of does with it, but he was with that one particular doe. I
yeah,
mean, they went back and forth on top of that hill, back and forth, and pretty soon that buck just absolutely left her.
yeah,
And I'm going, well, what the hell? He shouldn't be leaving her. But he went to
yeah,
the top of the hill, and as soon as he got to the top of the hill, you seen him he postured. He bristled up
yeah,
and postured instantly. And I told the wife, I said, there's another buck down the bottom of that drop.
yeah.
And pretty soon he walked sideways all the way down that hill.
Cool.
Now, what sucks is my son took my daughter in that same spot the night before and took the camera with and forgot to turn the camera off. So the battery was dead. No, I had to spare, but I didn't have no time to change
Yeah,
batteries.
sure.
But anyway, that buck went completely sideways down that hill, and pretty soon that one that Zoe got came out of the bottom, and he bristled up and turned sideways.
Yep.
And I looked at the wife and I said, "Watch this." Matter of fact, if you've seen the video yet, you can hear me say, "Why they're going to get after it."
Yeah.
And I mean, they locked horns and tangled assholes, and
Yeah.
for about 30 seconds. Now, my daughter's buck was actually bigger, and he got his ass kicked, and he completely left the whole area. That's how she got him. He
Yeah.
completely left everything. And I don't know why he just up and left. If he just said, "All right, you got me, I'm out of here," or what. But he just
Right.
completely left and he walked kind of right towards us, and the rest is history. But that was watching those two bucks just get after it was, you see it on
Yeah.
TV, you see it on videos. Uh, to see him do it, I've heard them. I've never actually physically seen them.
I have once, and they were nothing of any size. They were just these you know, year and a half, 2.5 year old basket racks that were getting after it and chasing, but so fun.
I take that back. I did see it once before, quite a few years ago. I was working the inbound shift at work, and it was opening day was that day. That's the reason I was working inbound so I could get off early and get down before noon to get hunting.
Yeah.
And I was going to work, and it was about 1:30 ish in the morning, and a buck had crossed in front of me on the highway,
Yeah.
and he looked like he'd been in a bar fight. Well, I stopped the pickup and was watching him, and all of a sudden I looked over and there was an approach right there, and I looked over and there's another buck standing right there. He just ears pinned back, and I'm like, no way. Well, that the one came from the other side. It just drilled him from the side and down the ditch they went. I mean, they were 15, 20 feet away. So I pulled the pickup up
Yep.
right beside them and I watched them and they just got after it. It was
Yep.
just insane.
Yep.
Just insane. And the strength they have, holy cow.
And about the uh time frame I'm talking about this year, we were on the way back from Park Rapids for my brothers, and we got around Wolf Lake, and uh, there was a pair that were just. I only caught just a few seconds of it, and then this buck ran this other smaller one off. He just got done whipping some ass, and I think I sent you some pictures of him standing in the road. I mean, we were honking. I was yelling out the window. He didn't care. He was king shit at Turd Mountain, and uh, the only other time I've personally observed it was in a stand, probably I would say it was, well, 10 years ago now. It was when I first started really learning how to use a grunt call properly. And boy, I tooted on that thing, and I was able to watch it from, I don't know, maybe 150 yards away. These two just went in the woods in front of me and tangled around lightning fast. I mean, you don't realize how fast deer are until you see a situation like that. It was lightning fast. I mean, doo, 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 doo. And
Yeah,
then they were gone, and then they were back, and then they were gone, and it was just lightning fast. And I ended up shooting the same thing here. I shot the one that lost, but it was nothing. It was nothing to really speak of. I was hunting in a spot I don't normally get to hunt, and I was just told we don't, we need to get them out of here. We don't want deer around here. They're. So I harvested. It was a 2.5-year-old buck. It's nothing special, but um,
right.
really amazing when you get to see stuff like that, though.
We a couple of years ago we seen a group of muleys and that one mule deer, biggest mule deer buck was lip curling and I mean just shit like that. I could sit and watch that kind of stuff all day long. It's
Yeah.
to me that's just neater than hell. But
Yep.
when does your guys' season end? So this coming weekend?
No, it ended on Sunday.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep. And then we got a little period in between here, and then end of the month muzzleloader starts.
Oh,
And I tell you what, I've killed more deer with a muzzleloader than I have a rifle. Um, Simply because previously I always hunted state land, um, and there's just not nearly as many hunters around for muzzleloader. When
oh, it
I
gets
first started
colder.
doing it, yeah, when I first started doing it, hardly anybody did it. I think I took you out muzzleloading the first time. Even hardly anybody was around. I mean, it's not really, aside from those those dingbats walking around a field using a grunt call like a tuba. But
Well, yeah, and sitting out in the wide open on their 5 gallon
5 gallon
bucket.
buckets. Yeah,
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 they're
yeah.
they're sneaky.
I still
They're
laugh about that.
sneaky.
But uh, it was just always a good opportunity, not owning land, to get out on state land and not bump elbows with 10 other people on the same piece. And if it played out right, you might have caught that second rut, and you might be seeing some cool stuff. And uh, like I say, is at the time not owning property, that was just always kind of the best bet. And as muzzleloaders have improved over the years, it's gotten better and better. There's a handful more people that do it now, but it's still nothing like rifle season. So it's
Right.
still one of my favorite times to be out and about. Deer aren't as pressured. They're not. You have a little more forgiveness. Even in your trips to and from the stand, you can feel a little bit more casual. Um, because they're not nearly as jumpy and scared, you know. So,
Well, that
um,
you know that time of year, like I said, it's getting colder. I remember that
mhm,
year or two. I can't remember. I hunted 2 years out in Minnesota with a muzzleloader when I was out there, just one.
yeah,
But I can remember being out there when it was like 15, 20 below zero.
yes, sir.
And the deer have to move when it's that cold. I mean, they gotta
Yep,
they gotta keep feeding. So you see more. You got more opportunities if you want
yep,
to bear the elements.
yep. And actually, I was thinking about that story earlier today, and that kind of got me thinking about something. And I don't know about you as an outdoorsman or a hunter, but every time, every hunting season, whether it's on purpose or I go out of my way, I make a point to always learn a lesson about something, or. And whether it be I'll do a sneak through the woods and just see what I find out, see where they're at, what they're moving, what I learned, or like this year, I ended up getting it on video. It's like a 4.5 long interaction with a doe. I was able to sneak into the woods. I snuck pretty much right up with this thing, with this doe, and made some grunt sounds with my mouth and had her all confused. And I had her within 10 yards of me. I have really great video of it. And but that in itself, in and of itself, is a prime example. I always make a point to try to learn something.
Well,
And
that's I'm big into that. I started really doing that when I started getting heavy into walleye fishing,
yep,
where that always ask yourself why.
yep,
And anything that happens, like with fishing, it was why are they here? Why are they biting? Why are they not biting? And trying to
yep,
figure it out. And does the guy always get it right? No, no, a guy doesn't. But that's the same. That's the same with hunting. Why did
yep,
that deer come from this area? Why is the main thing is, why is this deer bedding here? How is he
yep,
bedding? Why is he bedding the way he's bedding? Where
yep,
is he feeding? What
yep,
winds does he come to and from, or what route does he take compared to certain winds?
yep. And this
All
specific
that
thing this
stuff.
year is that's exactly why I ended up where I did. Um, Deer don't travel the same exact spot every single year. It'll vary a little bit. Even if there's a fence line, it'll vary a little bit where they take off and
Right.
move. And I didn't really get much of a chance preseason to get down there and look at it. And it was getting towards the end of the week. And I just decided I was going to do a sneak, and it's always really fun when you do it because it gets your heart pounded. You always bump into something. And it was just one of those experiences that it kind of harkened back to like stuff you'd hear about with like Fred Bear. I totally understand some of the things he would talk about. He'd sneak through the woods, uh, I don't know, just walking, creeping around just like I was doing, and um, I, I could have the doe I'm talking about. I could have killed it with a rock. So I totally understand it. It's um,
Well, see, that's the way we kind of got to hunt out here. I
yeah,
mean, we either we do a lot of hunting from the ground with a bow even,
mhm,
or we do a little bit in a ground blind. Um,
yep,
where the reason I got my permanent blind where I got it is during the rut. That's the only time I hunted up there is during the rut because those bucks come up and down those fence lines searching for does.
yep,
Um, so we got a few trees here we hunt out of, not very many. So I mean,
excuse me,
our ideal thing is to be able to be on the spot to go, okay, if we can see deer come in, can we cut them off or
yeah,
can we just sit tight? It's tough. It, it's
yep,
it's different when you're looking down at one from a tree stand than when you're looking them right in the face,
yeah, no
going,
doubt,
I'm stuck. I can't move. I mean,
yeah, yep,
especially when it's one you want to kill because I mean you're already starting to shake anyway, and you're going, then you're kind of starting to get antsy and it's a different experience.
I mean, I had this 120 pound doe. I'm not gonna lie, they get inside, they start getting to 10 feet, and you start getting a little nervous.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, uh, yeah, you get nervous whenever you have a deer come in, right? But they start getting that close, and you start thinking like, and you know how fast these animals are, and you think like, I'm glad there's a tree in between us right now, like,
right. Well, 2 years in a
So,
row, last year and the year before, I'd actually grabbed a fawn by the leg.
yep,
They got so close.
yep,
And I about took my pants laughing
yep,
because the one came right in and he stopped because he was looking at it was a mule deer and he's looking at the rest of the group. And I mean, I was sitting and I had my hands down and I just slowly reached my hand. I never even extended my arm. I just rotated my wrist and grabbed him by the leg. And I tell you what, that son of a bitch about turned himself inside out trying to get out of there. And I scared everything out when I did it, but I wasn't going to get a shot
yep,
that night anyway. And mule deer, you could kick a mule deer out of somewhere, and 2 hours later they'll come right back in. They're not like
yeah,
a whitetail.
right,
And
right,
the other one was north of town here. I was hunting some public land in a draw, and I had the camera set up right beside me in a tripod, just like this. And I was sitting on the ground so I could watch the viewfinder on my camera. And a doe and a fawn came in behind me, and the doe came Now, when she came beside me, she had kicked leaves on me when she came by,
Yep.
and the fawn actually knocked over my camera. And when he did, and that's the reason I grabbed him because I reached down like this to grab him so he wouldn't run me over at the same time. And
Yep.
the ruckus that frickin' made, that doe blew at me for 30 minutes. And that's the first time in a long time where I was at full draw at that doe going, you fucking bitch, you keep it up and you're going to get one. And
Yep.
I still had bucks come in that night
Yep.
and I
So
missed.
this doe I'm talking about, she came in 10 feet, and I was just standing perfectly still, and she started doing the trying to
Yeah. Trying to get you to
see me
move.
from different angles, trying to see me like, what is this thing? Am I actually seeing this? Is this something, And it was fairly windy, so scent wasn't necessarily that huge of a deal. Um, and in my experience, I don't know about you, but in my experience, it seems like does are more risk takers than bucks for some whatever reason it is. More
They're
curious, more,
they're in high
I don't.
alert. They're
Yeah,
the
but they're
smart
more
ones
than
of them.
but they're yeah, but they're more willing to take that risk to see what the hell's going on,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, so I was more or less in this spot, seeing if I could get a good view at the back way they come in over here. It's kind of over by my stand, and I did find it. It's like a tunnel in woods. It's beautiful, but in the process, I got kind of stuck where I was at because this doe and another one came in, and I figured, well, what the hell? I'm in here. I'm gonna see what happens. And thankfully, I thought to get my phone out and get some video of it. Um, Definitely one of those neat experiences that you talk about. But into what I was saying about our first black powder hunt together.
That was one of the coolest days, but yet
Yeah,
one of the most disappointing at the same time.
it's one of those ones you took a huge lesson out of it, but it's one of those things you have a story you'll talk about it for the rest of your life. No.
Well, I was shooting a 50 cal and that son of a bitch folded. I What the hell's a sense of reloading? He's
So we should just start from the beginning on this thing.
start from the beginning.
All right, let's do it. I have a notoriously bad gag reflex. Um, can't be helped. It's just who I am. It's what I
But no,
got.
no, mind you, we were 15, we were in our 20s and 30s or early 30s. Well, shit, I
Yeah,
think I was still maybe in my 20s at the time.
yeah. You were late
So
20s, man.
we were slightly more immature than what we are now, mind you.
Yeah, sure.
We didn't do nothing without fucking off. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So we got to this piece of state land that we'd found, and even come to think of it, that piece of state land is even completely different where I hunt, and that's just 50 miles away. So,
Right.
uh, we're sitting in the truck just bullshitting a little bit because we're a little bit too early to walk in. It wouldn't have made sense to sit out there and freeze as long as we did because, like you said, it was below zero.
It was
Um,
cold, yeah.
yes, sir. And I don't know what the hell you had to eat, buddy, but
That's right. I forgot about that part. I
you
let
had
one
it, dude.
bark
You
in the
had a
pickup.
sour, you had a lot. You had a sour stomach, dude. You smelled like a rotten corpse. It was the worst thing I've ever
You
smelled
told
in my
me
life.
I remember you go, it smells like baby poop.
Yeah, it was horrible, horrible. So that got me gagging to begin with, right? And then, we we laughed off and on, which always, gets you to the point you almost have an upset stomach too. And by the time we got out of the pickup, we were we were
You were trying to get me back from that, and that's how that dope piss thing got started. And
yeah.
that
So
backfired
so
on you too.
so I grabbed a bottle of dope piss. I dumped half a bottle of it on your boot, I think is what it was, and I sprinkled a little on mine. I'm like, all right, we're good, and the wind was in our face, and you took off walking in front of me.
And there's a reason why I walked in front of you. Because I had no clue where I was going. I've never
and I'm
been there. I
behind.
had no clue where I was going, but I knew damn well that I was going to walk in front of you.
Yeah, so I'm behind him, and we get about 20 yards, and I'm like, it couldn't be helped. It was the worst. It was the worst. So yeah, it backfired. But um, so we made our way into the middle of this piece of state land, and there was you remember the rock pile?
Yep, yep.
There was this really cool rock pile. Somebody had hollowed out the middle of it a little bit, and it functioned just like a perfect natural blind. We
Well,
were able to
it
kind of
had the
climb right.
weeds around it just perfect. I mean,
It
you
was
could still
so
move
perfect.
and be concealed. Yeah,
Yeah, it was so perfect. It was the best natural spot to sit and hunt I've ever found to this day, actually.
yeah.
And well, you want to take it from there? I mean, so we hit the grunt tube a few
Well,
times.
well, we sat there. We weren't there long. We must have been there half an hour, 40
45
minutes.
minutes or so. Just the sun was coming up.
Yep, yep. And it was, I don't remember. I think was it me that spotted him?
I think we both kind of did. So
We both kind of did. Yeah.
yeah, it'd
Well,
be about
anyway, regardless of it doesn't matter who spotted him, but we seen a deer to a buck to our, would have been our southeast,
yeah,
about half mile away.
yeah, which to us
Well,
would have
quarter
been
mile. I said quarter mile, not half mile, quarter mile.
it was a ways, but it was directly off to our right, straight like face it, off to our right. It was just boom, and
He
so
he stood there, then he acted like he was gonna walk away. So I hit the grunt tube. And as soon as I
yep.
did, I mean, he would posture right back up and he'd take a few steps and then he'd go back. And I can
Yep.
remember I did that like 3 or 4 times.
We
And you
coaxed him
you
all the way
kept
across
going
this field.
and you kept going, hit him again, hit him again. And I said, no, I said, just trust me. I said, I'm going to get him pissed off. I said, just,
Yep. Well, and up to
and
this point, personally, I didn't have much experience with the grunt call.
I don't have a ton, but I was just reading his body
Yep.
posture. It was telling me, and I'll probably be wrong 9 out of 10 times after this, but it was telling me that he's only gonna take so much of this before he's gonna have enough. And
Well,
he
and all
did.
this coaxing across the field, we were damn near, we were sitting there giggling about it, like he thinks he's coming to fight, like, and then he got, the last 25 yards, and we were like, oh shit, it's game time. Like,
Well, yeah, he went down that low spot and he came back up, and
yep,
we were sitting there like a couple little schoolgirls giggling, and we're, oh shit, he's right here.
yep,
And I
yep,
remember he came right up at us, and then he turned and went this way while I'm sitting over here with
yep.
the gun like this, and I'm quiet as can be, going, shit, shit. Well, all of a sudden, I don't know what made him do it, but he turned and he came right back around. And I can
We
remember
ended up
cocking the
switching
hammer.
places in there. We crouched down and switched places in there, so you had a better.
That's what it was. Yep, yep,
Yep,
yep.
yep.
But
So
he it was just like happened in the videos. I mean, he came right around just like he was supposed to.
it was one of the most beautiful. If we had that recorded, beautiful. Um, and then he shot
I
him.
can. I don't remember. Did he stop? Did he stop on his own, or did
Yeah.
we stop him?
No, he stopped on his own, and he was kind of giving it a once over in front of him, and
Yeah. But he's anyway. He stopped perfect, and I
yep.
cocked the hammer in that 50 cal, and I put her behind the front shoulders, and I touched her off, and I just seen smoke, but I seen his head hit his ass, then I seen his hooves. I
Yep.
mean,
So the smoke cleared, and all you
folded
saw
him,
was hooves. Yep.
just folded him. And I'm
So
like, and
I
we were just
had
going, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Well, that was freaking, now mind he wasn't a giant by all means, but how freaking cool was
no,
that, you
no,
know?
but
But
yeah, it's not
the
always about the
part that
size of the rack.
sucks,
Sometimes it's about the story or the experience.
yep, yep. And, I would have been happier than hell with him with my first muzzleloader deer,
Yeah.
but shit went downhill from there. I can remember you telling me
So
reload it. And
So
I'm like, nah, he's dead. He's dead.
so I ran out there. I'd had quite a bit of experience with muzzle loaders at this point, and I knew, low velocity. They're high grain, but they're relatively low velocity, and especially with the ones we were working with back then, they've come a long way since then even, and a lot of times they didn't stay down unless you hit them right in the pump station. And I ran over there and I was going to shoot it again, and you said, no, don't shoot him again. He's dead. He just doesn't know it yet. And I looked down and I looked at the deer and he looked at me and I was like, and whoop,
Well, he got up and he went like 20 yards and he fell over
stumbled.
again.
Yeah, yeah. But then
And
he
he
caught
got
his
back
wind.
up and he fell over again. And all of a sudden he just,
Yep,
and I'm
yep.
going,
That's
no freaking way.
yep. I
And that
shot,
was
but
most,
by that point it was
yeah.
I was guessing, but
But we didn't find blood
nope.
for what, an hour and a half after on the opposite
Yep.
side of that slough.
Yep. So this is like 100 acre cattail slough. It's huge. And so we get kind of noodling around in there. We found blood. And by this time we had already sweated our asses off working up a lather trying to find out where this bastard went. And the whole way I'm looking at Zane going, no, don't shoot him again.
Now, mind you, it had rained the day before, so it was muddier than hell anyway.
Yes, sir. And it's all clay out there. Reason they call it Clay County, I suppose. But um, yeah, we finally found blood, and then we found more blood, and then we found more blood.
And
Made it
blood
around to the
clots.
opposite side of this thing about, wow, that had to be 3/4 of a mile from where we started, I suppose.
Yeah.
Um, got around to the east corner of this slough and ended up kicking him out,
Well,
kicked him
I
out of
seen
there.
him
And this,
bedded in that lone tree that was in the middle of it. I seen him bedded right next to
yes,
that.
yep. And we ended up kicking him out of there. You got a shot, I got a
Nope.
shot,
You got I never
or what
shot
was
because
it?
you were over there.
That was what it was. I got a running shot at about 40, 50 yards or something, which is that's not necessarily an easy thing with anything, much less with a muzzle loader. So uh
And I
and he
and I
made it.
did well, he went across that plowed field,
Yeah, and I can't really gauge off the top of my head how far that was. Maybe what?
300, 400 yards.
Yeah, it was a ways. But he made it almost the other side and he was like acted like he was gonna fall over again, I remember. And by the time we got to the other side of that field, I knew why he was acting like he was gonna fall over because we were too.
Yeah.
the
Well,
the
then with just little drops of blood here and there, we lost blood.
So he crossed a creek and then we lost him pretty much. Yep. And we walked back
I,
out of there.
I came back that night.
Yep. Yep. I remember that.
My
I we
uncle and I
came out
came
of there.
back.
We came out of there and we walked a good mile across that plowed field. And your feet were 20 pounds apiece, so much mud on them and whatnot. And by the time we got to the grass on the opposite side of this field, I literally collapsed. I was spent,
Yeah.
absolutely toast. I don't know if it was as bad for you as, I mean, you're about a foot taller than me and whatever, but I mean, for a little guy taking smaller steps, dude, that was freaking brutal. And
It
I was toast.
well, then I went back across it twice that night.
Right. So we got a ride back from those Yahoos back to the truck, which was by this time 3 miles away or whatever the hell it was. And I was toast. We stopped and ate and whatever. We ran into those same guys, if I remember right, or whatever the hell it was. But I was just like, I gotta go home, dude. I'm shot.
Yeah.
And if
Well,
I
then I
would have
went
stayed
home and
out anymore,
I went home and called my uncle and I was talking to him about it. He drove all the way down from Devil's Lake.
yep.
And we
And if
went
I would have
back.
went out any more than that, it would have been dangerous. I was just spent.
Yeah, I was too, but I was bound determined to find him. And we did find a
Yeah.
couple specks of blood on the other side of that creek.
You know, now that we're talking about it, I don't think it was quite as cold as we're talking because it was muddy.
No, it was the very next week it was
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
because I
Yep.
went out the very next week and it was like negative 25.
Yep. Yep. So this was right as the weather was changing. Yep. So I don't know how long you spent out there, dude, but I slept halfway through the next day. I didn't even make it out the next morning, I don't think.
Well, we
No.
got back out there at, let's see, like 9 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
and we looked. I think we never got back to Fargo till like 1:30. And I think if we would have waited till the next morning, I think that big patch of brush that was there, I think we would
Yeah.
have found him in there dead.
Yeah. I've, I've always thought about it though. I mean, obviously you feel bad. You shot an animal and it got away, but we did our due diligence. I mean, to the limits of our physical abilities, I think. And from there, you know, the animal went to use. There's a lot of coyotes out there and whatnot. It's never something you want to see happen. Um, but you hunt long enough and those things do happen. But the the lesson I took from that though was if we had chilled out, if this was us now, we would have let that deer lay another hour or two before we went looking.
Well, we even talked about that day. We said
On the off chance that he would have bled out or
we
yeah,
should have
yeah,
went to town and had breakfast and relaxed for a little bit because I was like
yep,
at 8 o'clock in the morning. We should have came back at noon,
yeah.
and I think you'd have been dead in that
I
slough.
think the reason we didn't was because those guys that were standing there, though, we didn't want them going in there and taking them, or you know what I mean. If I remember right, that was part of our conversation because they watched right where
Yeah,
he went.
well, I think we were just stupid about it, and we talked about it
You know.
even before we went to look. And I think
Hmm.
it's one of those deals. We went to look for blood first, and then we are going to back out and come in just so we could kind of get an idea of where he was at. And I think we just
Yep.
kind of got involved in what we were doing. And
I
then
just
I came out the
got excited
backside.
and
Yep, I came out the backside of that slough and I seen that deer trail, and it was just painted red.
yep,
And then
yep,
I think we got excited because we had a whole bunch of blood then.
yeah. And for me personally, that was my first real experience. I didn't grow up hunting, uh, not per se. I mean, not until a little bit later age. I didn't have a dad that took me hunting or whatever, but that was my first real experience with learning that they don't always die right away. And there's a lot of times where you're better off leaving them lay rather than pushing them out.
Yep.
That was a
I learned another lesson last year bow hunting. I shot one bow hunting and
Yep,
I hit him a little hot. Well, he was directly below me, so I hit him a little high in the back, but it came out right right here. So I got one
yeah,
lung. I waited my hour to go look for him, figuring I still got a lung, you know,
yeah,
he'll be dead. Well, after about the first mile, I went, and it was a walking blood trail. I mean, you could take the
yeah,
spotlight and you could see, you know. So what we backed out, went in the next morning, and knowing now what I knew, if I'd have known then what I know now, I would have waited till the very next evening to go look for
yep,
him
yep,
because we seen his first bed like almost 2 miles the route he took from where I shot him. And then we seen another bed about a quarter mile and then another bed. Well,
yep,
duh, we were kicking him on a one and he wasn't going very far and he was bedding right back
yeah,
down again. And if we'd
yep,
have just left him, came back that evening or even the following morning, you
yep.
know, it just sucks having a deer suffer that long.
Well, there is that, and that's part of the game, though. I mean, you get it in your head like, well, I want to go get this deer. He's suffering, but on the same token, I think in the back of your head, like you're thinking like, oh, he's going to get away too.
Yeah,
But when they're mortally wounded like that, they're not going to want to travel. They're going to stay where they're comfortable unless they get pressured. And
yeah.
that's been a big lesson out of a couple of situations I've ended up in.
And then where to find him if you lose blood, and then is the arrow in him?
Yeah,
Is the arrow not in him? That all
yeah.
makes because he kept trying to go. The arrow was still in him, and he tried going into um sunflower fields or sunflower field,
Mm,
and he'd
yeah,
make
that
it
didn't go
like
well.
10 yards in, and you could see him just flip out because I mean there was
Yep.
dirt kicked everywhere. There were stalks, and he'd come right back out again.
Yeah, he'd
So
get
that
in there
arrow
like,
was
yeah,
hitting
yeah,
those
nope.
stalks. Yep.
Yep, yep.
So I mean
So
it's a lesson, got to take away lessons from it and
yeah.
learn for next time.
Yep.
Yeah, better
Yep.
lesson is just not to make a shitty shot and make a fatal shot instead. But
You know what?
you know,
In my mind, that was the first time he ever took a shot at a deer with a muzzleloader. But it, even to this day, when I look back at it in my mind, I think maybe you hit a little high. But
I
there was
I
nothing
had
wrong.
to
There
have.
was nothing wrong with your shot. Nothing wrong with your shot. Whether it was where we had the gun sighted and he was closer than we expected, or what it was, there was nothing wrong with your
Well,
shot.
I think
Oh,
I had it sighted in for 100 yards is what I had that gun sighted in
and he
for, and he was
was
about
what,
at
25,
60. No,
60
he
was.
was
I,
out.
I thought it was
Yep.
closer.
No, he
Okay.
was about 50,
Yeah.
60. So my first time shooting anything with a muzzle loader, I pulled it right where I wanted to hit, like I would a rifle. And
Yep.
all it takes is that much,
Yep.
and I had to hit right in that no man's land, but
Yep.
it sure knocked his dick in the dirt.
Yes, it did. I've never seen an animal hold like
No, I
that.
neither have I. That's why I'm like, there's no way I never even gave
Yeah.
it a
Yeah.
thought that he was going to get up
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
But it's just another lesson learned. I know that deer died from that. Um,
Yep.
whether he died on his own or got assistance by coyotes, but
Yep.
it it is what it is. It's part of the. I came home. Well, that one with the bowl last year. I came home and told the wife I'm done. I was so it wasn't the size of the animal that made me so sick. It was after I shot, watching him run away with that arrow sticking in him, the way it was,
And
because the
that's a.
fletching was out and then the tip was out on the other side.
I think that's part of the reason
And
why we've always got along so well with this stuff is we share a lot of the same opinions and empathy for animals, and uh, and like I said earlier, it's not always the size of the rack. It's the
no,
story. It's what you learn from it. It's
no.
the time you spent with your family or your friends, and
Well,
it.
that's just it. My son always says, "Well, geez, Daddy, you don't got to wait for 170, 180-inch deer." It's not what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for one to excite me. He
Yeah.
doesn't have. He can be a 130-inch deer. But if there's something unique about him or whatever that gets me excited, I'm going to shoot him. I don't have to shoot a
Yep.
190-inch deer. But
Yep.
if I don't kill one this year, my daughter got her first buck. That
Yep.
was, hey,
Yep.
I'm good.
Worth everything.
I'm
Yep.
good. I'm
And
I'm getting to that
and
age and I've killed enough deer where, hey, seeing the smile on her face and the amazement and whatever else,
yep.
I'm good. I'm good.
Well, even the one Jamie shot out of there last year, we shot him and we were done. Ooh, we left. You don't want to abuse your ability to have a good situation hunting, and
Right.
I left it alone after that. Um,
Hey, we're gonna time out again for some reason here, so we should
okay.
wrap it up and let's wrap it up and then you want to do one next week?
Hell yeah.